What if the coffee you drink every single morning wasn't waking you up, but slowly wearing you down? From New York to California, recalls are ripping through 48 states, exposing mold, hidden chemicals, and even deadly bacteria inside the brands millions trust most. Yet the warnings barely make the news, and the companies behind these cups keep smiling, cashing in on loyalty while quietly gambling with your health. Think about it, the same drink that feels like safety, like routine, may already be lacing your body with toxins that doctors say can trigger strokes, memory loss, or even kidney failure. Seniors, night shift workers, and families scraping by are being hit the hardest, the very people who can't afford another hospital bill. And still, the lines at drive-thrus stretch longer every day, each cup poured with blind trust. But here's the part no one is ready for. Buried in these recalls lies one shocking secret that could flip the entire coffee industry upside down. A truth so explosive it will make you question every sip you've ever taken. Walk into a Starbucks and you're not just buying coffee, you're buying comfort. That green siren on the cup whispers a promise. You're safe here. For millions of Americans, especially seniors balancing pills, pensions, and price tags, that paper cup feels like stability in a world that never stops changing. The brand has convinced us that no matter what chaos rages outside, inside that cup is certainty. But what if that very promise is the trap? What if the comfort millions sip each morning is actually a slow betrayal hiding behind a logo? The cracks in that illusion showed years ago. The California court revealed that Starbucks coffee contained acrylamide, an industrial byproduct created during roasting and not in small amounts. Levels were measured at up to 4 times higher than state safety guidelines. Acrylamide isn't some harmless trace chemical. It's been linked to cancers and nerve disorders. Yet no warning label ever made it onto the cups. Instead, Starbucks leaned on legal loopholes, staying silent while customers swallowed toxins alongside their muffins. Isn't that the same as selling umbrellas that actually leak when it rains? A product built on the illusion of safety, failing you when you need it most. But the betrayal runs deeper. Starbucks loves to market images of lush hillsides, smiling farmers, and the feel-good glow of ethical sourcing. The truth? Reports from Brazil, Ethiopia, and Guatemala paint a darker picture. Children bent over in blistering 100-degree heat, handling pesticides that Europe banned years ago. Internal company emails later leaked, showing executives had been warned about the violations. But instead of pulling beans or cutting ties, they let the warnings sit like burnt espresso at the bottom of a pot. Customers paid extra for fair trade, but what they got was exploitation repackaged with fancy Italian drink names. And when Starbucks does try to innovate, it often ends in disaster. Take their much-hyped Oleato line, olive oil-infused lattes sold as heart-healthy. Within 6 months, over 370 incident reports poured in. Nausea, diarrhea, stomach cramps. Baristas even nicknamed it the colon cleanse. But older Americans on medications weren't laughing from their hospital beds. And Starbucks? No recall, no apology, just a quiet removal from menu boards, as if erasing the problem could erase the damage. Even the little details, the syrups and add-ons, hide hazards, sucralose, the sweetener in their sugar-free pumps, was flagged in 2024 toxicology reviews for messing with insulin sensitivity and gut bacteria. Their matcha powder, bulked up with cornstarch and artificial dyes, a cost-saving trick that stretches profits while shrinking consumer trust. Even the almond milk used in countless lattes carries risks, with consumer reports finding oxalate levels high enough to aggravate kidney problems in vulnerable drinkers. Layer by layer, the risks pile on until the cup in your hands is less a treat and more a loaded dice roll. And yet people keep lining up. Seniors mutter to themselves, just one more won't hurt, as they shuffle to the counter. But isn't that the cruelest trick of all? That resignation is exactly what corporations bank on. They know the trust is so strong, the branding so powerful that customers will keep coming back even as evidence of harm stacks higher than their holiday cups. Looking ahead, the picture turns darker still. Recalls have already touched 48 states. But what happens when the next scandal breaks? Pesticide residues swept under the rug? Undisclosed additives regulators quietly allowed? Or a new wave of health side effects conveniently buried in fine print? Will Starbucks double down on denial until lawsuits pile higher than their Christmas cup promotions? Or will a breaking point finally come where the siren song loses its charm and customers wake up to the betrayal in their hands? The choice isn't easy. Local roasters and organic brands cost more, and for families on fixed incomes, safety often feels like a luxury. But ask yourself this: why should safety ever cost extra, while betrayal is sold cheap on every corner? Starbucks may hand you a cup with your name on it, but maybe the only name it deserves now is deception. If Starbucks sells comfort disguised as sophistication, Dunkin' sells comfort disguised as simplicity. Walk into a Dunkin' at dawn, and it feels like America's morning routine bottled in orange and pink. The sign promises speed, affordability, and a little jolt of energy to get through another long day. For many retirees on Social Security or workers heading to their shift at 5 a.m., that $1.79 steaming cup feels feels like the last affordable luxury left in America. But what if that very cup, cheap, familiar, dependable, is quietly hiding toxins, mold, and even lead? The numbers aren't small. In late 2024, Food Integrity Watch flagged over 160 Dunkin' stores across 13 states for stashing pre-brewed coffee in damp, mold-prone closets. Some of it was left sitting for weeks. When lab tests were run, they found ochratoxin A, a fungal toxin tied to kidney failure and memory decline. Imagine the cruel irony: seniors already battling high blood pressure or early dementia, unknowingly making their conditions worse with each sip. For them, every morning ritual was less about joy and more about rolling invisible dice with their health. The FDA inspected 47 stores and issued quiet corrective actions. But the public never warned. No headlines, no official recall. How many cups were served before those corrections were made? How many kidneys quietly scarred while Dunkin' told the world, America runs on Dunkin'? And then there's the corner cutting. A whistleblower in Queens filmed workers reusing filters up to 8 times and mixing stale coffee into fresh brews. The video went viral, but corporate dismissed it as an isolated incident. Yet leaked supplier audits later showed 23 more stores failed hygiene checks in the same quarter. One Florida location even had cockroach droppings near the grinder. If this happened in your kitchen, wouldn't you throw everything out? So why does a billion-dollar chain get to shrug, rebrand, and keep pouring poison into paper cups? But the biggest betrayal may come from the water itself. Coffee is 98% water, and Dunkin's brewing machines often connect directly to municipal supplies with little or no filtration. Independent testing by the Consumer Environmental Health Alliance in 2024 found Dunkin' brewers in Milwaukee, St. Louis, and 3 other cities had lead levels above 5 parts per billion. Lead, a neurotoxin banned from paint and pipes decades ago, showing up hot in your morning latte. Seniors, already the most vulnerable to neurological decline, were sipping lead-laced coffee daily. How many strokes, how many memory lapses have been blamed on just old age when in truth they may trace back to Dunkin's machines? And people keep drinking because the alternatives feel worse. At dawn, when choices are slim, Dunkin' feels like the only option. A 2023 survey found that 41% of low-income Americans over 60 pick Dunkin' primarily because it's cheap. Starbucks is out of reach, and small local roasters don't open before sunrise, so they gamble with their health, whispering to themselves, "One more cup won't matter." But the data says otherwise. Chronic low-level lead exposure affects millions, and hospital admissions tied to mold toxins are already in the thousands each year. The most bitter twist: Dunkin' has announced plans to expand into hospital cafes and senior centers under a community care initiative by 2026. Imagine that, the same coffee already tied to mold and lead being sold in the very places where patients are most fragile. A hospital might serve you Dunkin' after your kidney surgery, not knowing that each sip could push you right back toward the ER. But here's the question: will regulators finally act, or will corporate America keep pouring sludge into styrofoam and calling it breakfast? Will seniors continue being told their memory is fading from age, when it may be the coffee in their hands that's to blame? It doesn't have to be this way. Alternatives exist. Joe Coffee in New York triple tests beans for mold toxins. Herb Coffee Roasters invests in strict freshness checks and worker care. Café Mam sources pesticide-free beans while funding indigenous farmers. Even a $20 French press at home with clean water protects your body more than Dunkin's value menu. But Dunkin' has taught millions to accept filth disguised as familiarity, and that may be the most frightening part of all. Not just the mold and lead in the cup, but how numb we've grown to drinking it. For some Americans, McDonald's coffee feels like the last true bargain. Seniors on fixed incomes shuffle in at sunrise, clutching wrinkled bills or loose change, and walk out with a steaming cup for just over $1. It's fast, cheap, and dependable, or so it seems. But peel back the golden arches and the glow fades quickly. Because what's being poured into those styrofoam cups isn't just coffee, it's a cocktail of shortcuts, chemicals, and contamination that regulators keep sidestepping. Let's start with the beans. McDonald's proudly markets its brew as 100% Arabica.
Sounds pure, right?
But investigations by the European Food Watch Consortium uncovered shipments from Vietnam and Colombia where ammonia washing was standard practice. Translation: beans so stale or moldy they need a chemical spray tan just to look fresh. Whistleblowers even joked it was makeup for rotten beans. And while ammonia washing might mask the rot, it leaves residues behind. Residues swallowed every day by seniors who believe they're making a smart, budget-friendly choice.
Doesn't 100% Arabica sound hollow when the truth is 100% cover-up?
But it doesn't end there. In 2024, the Global Chemical Risk Network tested McDonald's coffee and found chlorpyrifos, a pesticide banned in Europe for its links to memory loss and nerve damage. Out of 5 McDonald's samples, 3 contained residues, technically legal in the US, But safe for seniors whose brains and nervous systems are already more vulnerable? Absolutely not. And here's the cruel irony. McDonald's own demographic data shows that the largest group of McCafe drinkers are people over 55. So the very group most at risk of memory decline is the one most targeted. And even if the beans were flawless, the brewing process tells a darker story. In 2024, employees leaked photos of McDonald's coffee machines caked in brown slime, hard water crust, and even insects. More than 220 stores across 12 states were named in a class action complaint. Thousands of customers may have sipped bacteria-laced coffee without ever being warned. For a healthy young adult, that's disgusting. But for an older customer with a weakened immune system, it's a direct threat. Why clean machines when every extra minute costs profit? At McDonald's, speed trumps sanitation. Then there's the water. Coffee is mostly water, and many McDonald's franchises simply hook their brewers to basic municipal pipes without filtration. In older towns across the Midwest and South, those pipes still carry lead. In Flint, Michigan, a 2022 consumer lead test found McDonald's coffee with 8.3 parts per billion of lead, 5 times higher than Starbucks or Panera in the same region. Lead doesn't just taste metallic. It chips away at memory, blood pressure, and long-term health. How many seniors already blame their brain fog on aging when it may actually be the poison flowing from their morning cup? And the future doesn't look brighter. In 2025, McDonald's announced a partnership with FNC Trading to cut global coffee costs by 12%. The catch? FNC is infamous for sourcing parchment-defective beans from Honduras and Sumatra, the lowest-grade imports, often moldy or chemically treated to mask defects. If McDonald's is already serving washed-out beans, pesticide residues, and machine grime now, what happens when they cut costs even further? More bleach baths? More undisclosed chemicals? More silent hospitalizations brushed off as coincidence? The next scandal isn't a question of if, it's a question of when. But there are alternatives. Brands like Kicking Horse Coffee in Canada reject chlorpyrifos outright and maintain full fair trade certifications. Purity Coffee in the US tests every batch for toxins, pesticides, and heavy metals. Even a cheap drip machine at home with clean, filtered water can brew something safer than what McDonald's serves in its golden cups. Yet tomorrow morning, millions will still line up, muttering, "It's just coffee!" But is it? Or is it a chemical compromise brewed in a dirty machine, poured into the hands of the very people who deserve better? And if this is how we treat the generation that built highways, raised families, and fought wars, what does it say about us? More chilling still, if McDonald's will cut 12% on coffee today, what will they cut next in the name of savings? The name was supposed to be edgy marketing. Death Wish Coffee, a daring brand for people who wanted to feel unstoppable, alive, and fueled with raw energy. But over the years, that name has started to sound less like a clever slogan and more like a chilling prophecy, because for thousands of loyal customers, especially seniors and workers pushing their bodies beyond their limits, Death Wish didn't just sell caffeine, it sold danger in a can. The first major warning came in 2017 when the FDA forced a nationwide recall of Death Wish Nitro Cold Brew. Tests revealed the coffee was at risk of contamination with botulinum toxin, the same paralyzing agent used in biological warfare. Just a sip of this toxin can shut down the lungs within hours. And the scariest part? Thousands of cans had already been sold before the recall hit. Imagine an older American cracking open a can to stay awake for a late-night bingo game, not knowing they were swallowing what experts called one of the deadliest poisons on Earth. Botulism thrives in low-acid, oxygen-free containers, the exact conditions Death Wish created when they canned their nitro brews. And here's the kicker. This wasn't an accident. The FDA later confirmed that the company skipped a critical sterilization step recognized across the entire industry. In plain English, Death Wish gambled with people's lives just to shave costs. For younger adults, it was reckless. For seniors with fragile immune systems, it was practically a death sentence waiting to be triggered. But even if botulism wasn't lurking, the caffeine itself is a silent predator. A single serving of Death Wish coffee can pack over 400 milligrams of caffeine, nearly 5 times the hit of a standard energy drink. In 2023 alone, watchdog groups logged more than 100 emergency room visits tied to extreme coffees, with Death Wish topping the list. One case involved a retiree in Florida who collapsed at a community hall when her pacemaker couldn't handle the caffeine surge. The story made local headlines and then quietly disappeared. How many similar cases have been brushed aside as just old age, when, in truth, it was corporate recklessness brewing in a cup? And the danger doesn't stop there. Death Wish's customer base is built on vulnerability. Truck drivers pushing through midnight highways, night shift workers forcing their bodies to keep going, and older Americans desperate for energy their bodies no longer produce naturally. For these groups, caffeine isn't a luxury. It feels like survival. Death Wish capitalized on that need, turning exhaustion into a marketing gimmick. But what it really sold was exhaustion wrapped in danger. The company insisted as fixed safety protocols since the botulism scare, but the future looks anything but safe. As long as Death Wish builds its reputation on being the strongest coffee in the world, the line between energy and overdose will always blur. Will the next scandal come from another sterilization failure, or will it be the first confirmed caffeine-related death linked to the brand? Either way, it is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And yet, customers keep buying it, the skull logo daring them to take another risk. But what is more rebellious? Buying into a marketing stunt that gambles with your health, or choosing safety over hype before the next tragedy brews? Because at the end of the day, the strongest coffee in the world is not the one that leaves you breathless in the emergency room. It is the one that fuels your life without cutting it short. Before we move on, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. We're just getting started, and the next brand might be sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now. For decades, Folgers wasn't just coffee, it was a feeling. The bright red tub on the grocery shelf promised routine, nostalgia, and stability. Their commercials painted warm pictures of smiling grandparents pouring mugs for their families, backed by that catchy jingle, the best part of waking up. For retirees and working families stretching every penny, Folgers became more than a brand. It became a symbol of comfort that fit any budget. But comfort, as it turns out, can hide betrayal. And with Folgers, that betrayal has been brewing for years. Beneath the warm branding and morning cheer lies a darker reality. Independent reviews have repeatedly flagged Folgers for toxic heavy metals, mold contamination, and chemical residues that would never pass inspection in Europe. The insult cuts deepest because Folgers knows exactly who it is targeting: low-income households and seniors on fixed incomes, the very groups least able to fight back or afford alternatives. The numbers are chilling. In 2021, a Clean Label Project study tested more than 100 coffee products. Folgers ranked among the worst, with measurable levels of lead and cadmium. Just one cup of their classic roast carried cadmium close to California's Proposition 65 daily safety limit. Cadmium is not just a scary word, it is a toxin tied to brittle bones, kidney decline, and weakened immunity. Problems millions of older Americans already struggle with. Later, Consumer Reports confirmed high traces of lead in Folgers instant coffee, the same neurotoxin banned from gasoline decades ago for shrinking children's brains. Now picture that same toxin dripping into the mugs of seniors whose memories are already fragile. How many cases of so-called just getting old are really the silent work of a brand that markets itself as harmless? And then comes the mold. Independent screenings in 2022 detected aflatoxin and ochratoxin A in multiple Folgers products. These fungal poisons are strongly linked to liver damage and cancer. In Europe, shipments containing those levels are seized and destroyed. In America, the same beans are sealed into cheerful red containers and sold for under $10 at Walmart. It is hard not to see the message. European customers get protection, while American seniors get poisoned convenience. Even Folgers decaf carries a cruel irony. Instead of using natural water processing, Folgers relies on methylene chloride, a solvent flagged by the EPA as a potential carcinogen, to strip out the caffeine. While technically legal, residues of the chemical have been detected in the final product. So the retiree choosing decaf to protect a fragile heart may instead be sipping a hidden risk. Isn't that like taking aspirin to avoid a heart attack only to find out it was laced with arsenic? The betrayal stings even more when you look at the numbers. In 2023, the CDC reported over 128,000 hospitalizations from foodborne toxins in the United States. Seniors were the hardest hit. Coffee was not listed as the sole cause, but experts quietly warned that contaminated beans are a major, underreported contributor to kidney and liver decline. All while Folgers' parent company, J.M. Smucker, spent millions airing ads of serene mornings with retirees who may be paying the price with doctor visits and hospital stays. And the road ahead looks darker still. Climate stress in coffee-growing regions is depleting soil quality, which means beans are absorbing even more heavy metals. At the same time, damp storage conditions in tropical countries where Folgers sources bulk beans increase the risk of mold growth. Folgers' commitment to cheap, high-volume imports makes it especially vulnerable. Will the next harvest carry even higher cadmium levels? Will mold toxins spike until lawsuits force warning labels onto those bright red tubs? Or will regulators continue to look the other way while millions keep spooning Folgers into their morning brew? It doesn't have to be this way. Alternatives exist. German imported Mount Hagen. Organic instant coffee meets strict European safety standards and USDA organic certification. US-based purity coffee tests every batch for mold, heavy metals, and pesticides, earning a following among doctors and athletes. Even budget shoppers can choose safer options like Don Francisco's Organic at Costco, often only a few cents more per cup. Compared to the hospital bills that Folgers may be brewing, those options are the true bargains. So the question is not whether Folgers has toxins. The question is, how long will Americans keep mistaking poison for nostalgia? How many more mornings will seniors smile over a red tub of coffee, never realizing they are pouring betrayal into their cups with every scoop? Folgers built its empire on a jingle about joy, but perhaps the real truth is this: the best part of waking up is finally realizing what is in your coffee. Few coffee companies have wrapped themselves in patriotism as tightly as Black Rifle Coffee. From commercials drenched in flags, rifles, and slogans about freedom, the brand positioned itself as more than just caffeine. It promised loyalty. It promised integrity. It told veterans and working-class Americans that every sip was a stand for service and sacrifice. But peel back the camouflage, and the reality looks nothing like the glossy ads. Beneath the red, white, and blue packaging lies a brew laced with toxic residues, broken promises, and a business model built on outrage. For many retirees and veterans who thought they were supporting integrity, the truth feels like the cruelest kind of betrayal. Start with the beans themselves. Independent lab tests in 2023 by Global Clean Foods detected residues of paraquat and glyphosate in Black Rifle's bulk lines. Paraquat is so toxic that even small exposures have been linked to Parkinson's disease, a condition already haunting millions of seniors. Glyphosate, meanwhile, sits at the center of billion-dollar cancer lawsuits. In Europe, beans with those residues would never even make it past customs. In the United States, they were roasted, bagged, and sold proudly under a logo of rifles and patriotism. No warnings, no recalls, just a flag-wrapped package hiding shortcuts that quietly put health at risk. And then there are the politics. Investigations by ProPublica and The Intercept uncovered donations routed through political groups that ultimately ended up linked with extremist causes. Internal memos revealed something chilling. The backlash was not a mistake. It was a strategy. Outrage wasn't an accident. It was fuel for the brand. For retirees and veterans who believed their dollars were supporting fellow servicemen, finding out their money may have been funneled into division feels like being drafted into a war they never agreed to fight. Even the marketing claims don't hold up. In 2024, a class action lawsuit in Texas accused Black Rifle of advertising certain roasts as single origin, but internal records showed blends from at least 3 countries, including plantations tied to forced migrant labor. For customers raised on honesty and hard work, that is not just false advertising. It is fraud wrapped in the American flag. And let's not forget the health risks beyond pesticides. A VA-affiliated survey in 2023 found that nearly 1 out of 5 veterans reported adverse reactions after drinking Black Rifle's most popular blends like Silencer Smooth and Calf. These included insomnia, palpitations, and severe acid reflux. Each cup packs well over 300 milligrams of caffeine, strong enough to trigger dangerous spikes for seniors already on heart medications. Emergency room physicians in Kentucky and Oklahoma documented more than 20 cases in a single year where Black Rifle coffee was cited before episodes of tachycardia. For younger bodies, it might mean jitters. For an older heart, it can mean a hospital stay. And the future? It looks even darker. Climate stress is already forcing farmers in Latin America to use more pesticides. Some studies predict a 35% increase by 2030. If Black Rifle continues to chase the cheapest beans, chemical residues will only climb. Meanwhile, the company's political branding risks alienating mainstream retailers, which could force even deeper cost-cutting at the farm level. Which scandal comes first, a recall after paraquat levels spike, or a boycott as politics backfire? Either way, it won't be the company that pays the price. It will be the ordinary Americans pouring another cup. The irony is brutal. A brand that promised loyalty and honor may have delivered nothing but toxins and deception. And when veterans, seniors, and working families realize the truth, the betrayal will cut deeper than any caffeine crash. Because when your morning coffee hides poison behind patriotism, the question is no longer whether you should keep drinking. The real question is, what else have we been swallowing in blind trust? For millions of Americans, convenience comes in the shape of a plastic pod. Pop it into the machine, press a button, and within seconds you have a steaming cup of coffee. No grinding, no filters, no wait. Keurig turned this idea into a global empire, selling not just coffee but the illusion of control. It feels safe, modern, and efficient. But behind that satisfying click lies one of the most toxic brews on the market, a silent threat wrapped in single-use plastic. Start with the pods themselves. Most Keurig cups are made from plastic blends that contain BPA and other endocrine-disrupting chemicals. When hot water blasts through the pod, those chemicals don't just stay in the plastic, they leach into the coffee. BPA is linked to hormone disruption, reproductive issues, and even cancer. The FDA has restricted its use in baby bottles, yet it remains in countless pods that older Americans and families use daily. Every sip may be delivering more than caffeine. It may be dosing your body with chemicals that accumulate silently over time. Then there is the issue of mold. Unlike freshly ground beans, pods are sealed and often stored for months, even years. Independent testing in 2022 found mycotoxins like ochratoxin A in multiple pod-based coffees. These toxins thrive in damp storage and are strongly linked to kidney damage, immune suppression, and cognitive decline. Seniors already vulnerable to all three are sipping these risks every morning, never knowing that the quick convenience may be eroding their health cup by cup. And while Keurig claims to use high-quality beans, watchdogs like Clean Label Project discovered that some pod varieties tested among the worst for heavy metals, including nickel, lead, and cadmium. These toxins build slowly in the body, weakening bones, damaging kidneys, and worsening memory loss. What's worse, pod drinkers often consume multiple cups a day because the process feels effortless. That means exposure levels can skyrocket before anyone even realizes what's happening. The environmental cost only twists the knife deeper. Billions of pods end up in landfills every year. Studies estimate that if you line them up end to end, they could circle the Earth more than 10 times. Those same plastics break down into microparticles that seep into soil and water, the very resources that coffee crops rely on. In other words, the convenience of pods today may poison the coffee supply of tomorrow. And the future? It doesn't look any safer. Keurig's newest innovation, the so-called compostable pod, has already drawn criticism for breaking down only under industrial conditions that most households can't access. Meanwhile, lawsuits continue to pile up accusing the company of false environmental claims. Behind the branding, the same toxic brew remains, just dressed in greener packaging. Consumers deserve better. Safer options exist: stainless steel reusable pods, organic beans from transparent roasters, even simple pour-over methods that cost pennies per cup. But convenience has lulled millions into blind trust. And that may be the cruelest twist of all, because the button that feels like control is actually a surrender of health, safety, and the future, to corporations that bank on our willingness to trade years of life for a few seconds saved each morning. So ask yourself this: is your time worth more than your health? Or has the modern coffee pod quietly turned into the most dangerous brew of them all? Thanks so much for watching all the way through. If this video opened your eyes, consider sharing it with someone you care about. It might just protect their health. And if you want to stay ahead of the recalls and cover-ups no one else is talking about, make sure you hit subscribe before you go.